The first time anyone saw the exhausted single father standing in the pouring morning rain outside his son's elementary school with a torn backpack stitched together by hand, no one could have imagined that only a few weeks later he would be walking beside one of the most powerful CEOs in the country. Even harder to believe was that the woman who had spent years building billion-dollar companies would discover that the greatest lesson about success would come from a man whose greatest treasure was a little boy holding his hand. What began as a harmless dare between old friends would become a journey that challenged pride, healed broken hearts, and proved that love often arrives when life seems determined to close every door. Before we begin, if you believe kindness deserves a second chance and that every hardworking parent deserves happiness, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment sharing where you're watching from, share this story with someone who believes in hope, and subscribe to Hardworking Dad for more emotional stories that remind us that love is never truly lost. Every weekday morning, Rowan Mercer woke before sunrise. While the city still slept beneath the soft golden glow of dawn, he quietly prepared breakfast, packed lunch, washed dishes, folded laundry, and made sure 7-year-old Milo never started a day feeling the weight of the struggle surrounding them. Since losing his wife 3 years earlier to a sudden illness, Rowan had learned to become both father and mother. He smiled even when exhaustion covered his face because he refused to let grief steal his son's childhood. Money was always tight. Rowan worked maintenance at a community recreation center during the day and repaired furniture in his tiny garage during weekends to earn extra income. His clothes were simple, his car was old, and every dollar was carefully planned. Yet their little apartment overflowed with warmth because every evening ended with homemade dinners, bedtime stories, and promises that tomorrow would somehow be brighter than today. His closest friend, Gideon Hale, had watched Rowan sacrifice everything for Milo. Gideon admired him but also worried that his friend had forgotten how to live for himself. Rowan rejected every invitation to meet someone new, convinced that no woman would want the complicated life of a widowed father struggling to make ends meet. One sunny afternoon during lunch, Gideon laughed after hearing Rowan dismiss another blind date suggestion. Half joking and half serious, he challenged Rowan with a ridiculous dare. If ordinary dates were impossible, why not ask out the most successful woman in the city instead? Rowan nearly choked on his sandwich before discovering Gideon was talking about Celeste Arden, the legendary CEO whose technology company employed thousands of people and whose face regularly appeared on magazine covers. Everyone knew Celeste. She was admired for her intelligence, respected for her discipline, and feared during business negotiations. Newspapers described her as unstoppable. Television interviews praised her vision. Yet rumors always mentioned the same thing. She lived alone, worked endlessly, and rarely smiled outside formal events. The dare was supposed to be a joke, something friends would laugh about for years. But Gideon secretly entered Rowan's name into a charity auction where the grand prize was a dinner with Celeste to raise funds for children's education. Neither friend expected Rowan to win. When Gideon confessed what he had done, Rowan nearly walked away forever. The thought of sitting across from one of the wealthiest women in the country felt embarrassing. He owned one decent suit, borrowed from his late brother years earlier. He had no expensive watch, no impressive career, and certainly no confidence that he belonged anywhere near someone like Celeste. Still, Milo looked up at him with bright hopeful eyes and reminded him that courage sometimes meant doing scary things for a good reason. The dinner supported children who needed better schools. Rowan finally agreed, promising himself he would simply attend, make a donation, and disappear from her life forever. The evening arrived beneath a beautiful clear sky. The charity ballroom sparkled with elegant lights and polished marble floors. Wealthy guests discussed investments while photographers captured every famous face entering the hall. Rowan felt invisible despite standing in the middle of everyone. His hands trembled as he adjusted his old tie. Celeste entered surrounded by executives and reporters, wearing a graceful navy blue dress that reflected quiet confidence rather than luxury. Her expression remained calm but distant. Years of leadership had taught her how to hide every emotion behind professionalism. When they were introduced, something unexpected happened. Rowan did not flatter her wealth or ask about her company. Instead, he thanked her for supporting children's education because every child deserved opportunities regardless of family income. For the first time that evening, Celeste genuinely smiled. As dinner continued, Rowan spoke about Milo's love of astronomy, fixing broken furniture, and teaching children at the recreation center how to repair bicycles instead of throwing them away. He never tried to impress her. His honesty became the most refreshing conversation Celeste had experienced in years. Meanwhile, Rowan quietly noticed that behind Celeste's remarkable achievements existed a lonely woman carrying invisible burdens. Every compliment directed toward her focused on profits, awards, or influence. No one seemed interested in asking whether she was happy. The dinner ended with polite applause, but neither expected to think about the other again. 3 days later, Celeste unexpectedly visited the recreation center after remembering Rowan's stories about community programs. She arrived without cameras or assistants. She watched him patiently repair old sports equipment while laughing with neighborhood children who adored him. They treated him like a hero, not because he was rich, but because he always listened. Milo proudly introduced Celeste to his friends and innocently showed her a small notebook filled with dreams. One page simply read, "When I grow up, I want to help Dad smile every day." Those words struck Celeste harder than any business negotiation ever had. She realized Rowan never complained despite carrying responsibilities that would overwhelm many people. Every sacrifice he made was invisible to the outside world, yet completely obvious to the child who loved him most. Over the following weeks, Celeste found reasons to return. Sometimes she donated sports equipment. Sometimes she volunteered during community events. Other times she simply wanted a quiet conversation far away from boardrooms and endless meetings. People began whispering about the unlikely friendship between the billionaire CEO and the maintenance worker. Social media exploded with speculation. Reporters searched for scandal where none existed. Critics accused Rowan of chasing money, while others insisted Celeste had finally lost her judgment. The cruel comments reached Rowan first. Rather than defend himself, he quietly stepped away from Celeste. He refused to let gossip damage her reputation or become a burden to her company. Without explanation, he stopped answering messages and focused only on work and Milo. Celeste felt abandoned but gradually understood why Rowan had disappeared. He believed protecting her future mattered more than his own feelings. One rainy afternoon she visited his apartment unannounced. The building was old. Paint peeled from the walls. Children's bicycles leaned against narrow hallways. Nothing resembled the luxurious world she knew. Inside, Rowan apologized for the tiny space while serving homemade soup in mismatched bowls. She looked around and saw family photographs covering every wall. Milo's school drawings decorated the refrigerator. A worn armchair sat beside a bookshelf filled with bedtime stories. There was almost no expensive furniture, yet the apartment radiated peace. For the first time in years, Celeste realized she envied someone else. She owned penthouses in 3 countries, traveled in private jets, and commanded international respect. Yet she had never experienced a home filled with unconditional love. That evening she confessed, not with dramatic speeches but with quiet honesty, that success had given her everything except the one thing she secretly wanted most: people who loved her regardless of her accomplishments. Rowan admitted he had pushed her away because he feared becoming another headline that people would use against her. Instead of walking away, Celeste thanked him for caring enough to sacrifice his own happiness. The distance between them quietly disappeared. Months later, Celeste announced an ambitious community partnership through her company. Rather than building another luxury headquarters, she invested millions into neighborhood education centers, playgrounds, scholarships, and vocational workshops inspired by Rowan's everyday acts of kindness. Employees were surprised to learn the inspiration behind the project wasn't a famous consultant or celebrity. It was a father who repaired broken furniture so families could save money. The grand opening attracted hundreds of families. Journalists expected another corporate celebration but witnessed something far more meaningful. Rowan stood beside Milo while neighborhood children proudly demonstrated skills they had learned through the new programs. Parents wiped away tears knowing opportunities once reserved for wealthier communities were finally available close to home. Gideon watched everything from the crowd with overwhelming emotion. His ridiculous dare had accidentally changed countless lives. Not long afterward, during a bright afternoon community picnic filled with laughter, music, and children chasing colorful kites across the park, Celeste gently took Rowan's hand before hundreds of smiling families. There were no flashing cameras arranged for publicity, no business announcements, and no grand performance. There was only sincere gratitude between two people who had discovered that real wealth was measured by compassion rather than possessions. Milo hugged them both so tightly that everyone nearby laughed through happy tears. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to like this video, share it with your friends and family, leave a heartfelt comment, and subscribe to Hardworking Dad so more people can discover stories that remind us kindness can still change lives. Special request: before this story ends, please comment, "Kind hearts always find each other." We'd love to know how many people still believe that love, humility, and compassion are stronger than money and status. As the sun slowly disappeared beyond the horizon, Rowan realized that life had answered a challenge he never intended to accept. A simple dare had become the doorway to healing. Celeste discovered that genuine love could never be purchased, only earned through kindness. Milo learned that hope sometimes arrives wearing the most unexpected face. And everyone who witnessed their journey understood one unforgettable truth: the strongest relationships are not built on wealth, fame, or perfection, but on quiet sacrifices, honest hearts, and the courage to believe in second chances even when the world says they no longer exist. Sometimes the greatest miracle is not that two completely different lives meet. The real miracle is that they recognize the goodness in each other before the rest of the world does. And when that happens, even the deepest wounds begin to heal, proving that every hardworking parent, every lonely soul, and every broken heart still has the chance to find a beautiful new beginning.